I have a topic prepared for us about momentum, and the reason we're going to talk about momentum now is because it's very easy for like in everyday life, since we're still like I'm establishing that theme of everyday life, and like this is the next topic that we're going to go over for that, and that's just about momentum, because it's very easy, at least I'm guessing we all can agree, at least the majority, that once like the ball gets rolling on something, it's very easy to continue that trend. So like if you're happy and things are going well, you're more likely to take more risks, more chances, to be more confident in your choices in general. So having said that, there's the other side of that spectrum, where sometimes you can get down on yourself if something goes wrong. And ideally, we as people would want to break that momentum. So there's two types of momentum, like for just your personal, feelings, your attitude. And one side is usually the positivity, and it just feels like everything's going great. And when everything's going wrong, that's when it becomes more of a challenge to break that, because it's much easier when things are going well and continuing to go well. But when things are going bad, how do we break that momentum? So I wanted to give an example today. This morning, I showed up late for work. And so this is, again, because the topic of discussion is everyday life, I'm always going to try to use the day of the recording to give the best example possible. So in this example, and this is true, they're doing construction on the entranceway to the highway I have to take to go to work. So I leave early, I get in my car, and another commute to work. I run into this traffic, 30 minutes. I'm late for work, and this is when like the bad, angry, agitated, those types of feelings start kicking in, and I kind of get down on myself, because even though I know it's not my fault, I have to make a decision of whether you want to like vent about it, get that type of release to change the momentum of that anger, to stop it from continuing, because it's much easier to continue something once it's started. And so that goes for all things. That goes for happiness and sadness. So in this case, or anger, or whichever. So in this case, I stayed like generally upset for the first hour of work. And then my coworker says, like, "What's wrong? You look a little agitated, a little upset." And I said, "Well, I was just late this morning." And I said it in a more like in the moment kind of way. I was like, "You know what, man? I was just late this morning." Like I was clearly upset. Because I personally don't like to be late for things. So that momentum was still carrying. That was still an hour of just sulking and being upset and having all these thoughts in my head, like, oh, I gotta do better next time. I gotta remember that, I gotta look ahead. I always tell myself to prepare better. So it's just all this negativity. But I was lucky enough to have a coworker that, like, after he heard me say that, he was telling me, like, "You know what? We have a lot of people here that do that. You're not the first. You won't be the last." That type of talk. Just being very realistic. Realistic optimism, which is what I like to use a lot. Because he was able to do that, it rubbed off on me, but it's not as if like he was the savior. Because ultimately, if you do have like momentum for anger or sadness or depression, and bad thoughts start to creep in, it's up to you no matter what. Like, even if you do have that coworker that's going to righten the ship and remind you that it's just something silly that happens, like, to everyone in everyday life. So to get yourself out of that mindset, it's up to you. So he helped remind me. That's what my coworker was able to facilitate for me. But ultimately, it was my choice, my decision to, embrace the humor that he started to bring to it. He was like, he even pointed at another coworker and said, like this person is like, I won't use names, is like the queen of being late. She's the queen of being late. And she was late that day, but she didn't care. Like, she's more like a carefree spirit, which is great. you know, it obviously has its disadvantages because eventually someone's going to care that she's late. Um, but for me, it was more of a personal matter. So getting over that hurdle. I'm not, and again, this discussion isn't about getting the answers to overcome bad feelings that become more like a downhill tumble. Oh, yo, what's up, Foas? I see you over there. But for this, you know, for this like ideal where we can stop this bad train of thought, generally unhappy feelings.
This is crazy talk.
Thanks for the sub, Terry. Thanks for the love, man. 5 months, jeez. You're like the one like primary supporter of the stream. I appreciate that, man. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. Sorry, YouTube. But anyways, it's up to you though. That's the point. The point is it's up to you. You have to find your own way. And for me, finding my own way was allowing myself to be upset. That's fine. You know, it took me an hour. And I have no shame in that. But as long as I was able to achieve my goal, it doesn't matter about how much time you spend. What really matters is if your intentions are to do it. That's where it starts. You have to start with intentions. And so my intention that like earlier today was to overcome the fact that I got really tilted from this traffic and like started like saying all these bad things about myself, about the day, about the morning, about the work that I'm doing. Notice that like one bad thing can suddenly make everything around you seem like shit. But all it takes is that little thought in your head, that little thought that I'm going to get over this. You know, maybe it won't be today. Maybe it won't be right like as immediate as I'd like, but as long as my intention is to fix it, that's where I have to take that first step. So that's where I start with momentum breaking, the accumulating, let's call it, bad thoughts, very, you know, toxic thoughts that are very harmful for yourself. So with that in mind, you know, I was lucky to have a coworker in this situation. And let me know your thoughts. What other ways can you break momentum if it's bad, or to reflect on good momentum and understand like how can I make this like authentically good and nurture it so that next time it happens I can just let it be natural and not be annoyed or bothered by it. Because one topic I didn't really discuss is when things go well and then all of a sudden they stop, you know, that could be an entire avalanche. Like I was talking about tumbling down a hill. It's more of an avalanche when you have to go, when you're going downhill and you're just running downhill and everything's great, you're happy. And then all of a sudden, an avalanche follows you and it just consumes you. Right. And everything that was once good all of a sudden seems bad. So in those types of situations, some of that maybe I haven't mentioned yet. What do you do, or what has worked for you? Because sometimes we try things that might work for our own just like healthy mindset in some scenarios, but not all scenarios. So that's why I think for this discussion and for this question that I'd like to pose for today's How Are You episode, I want us to focus on our strategies and our self-talk that we do when we're experiencing continuous good or bad thoughts or actions that are occurring in our everyday life, and how we can use those strategies in a broader spectrum, like, you know, for our own wellness, our overall wellness, because it all starts with the day, right? But how can that, like, our day-by-day experiences add up to one whole happy, good, productive life, whatever you want, your life. This is your life. So that'll probably do it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I think I went around 10 minutes. Please leave a comment. Please interact with each other, man. This is your space. This is your space to talk about this shit. and I'll contribute as I did with the last episode. This is something I'm really interested in learning more about personally. So that's my experience. I hope you can share yours authentically and truthfully, whether it's good or bad, and we can continue to grow. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. And I'll see you next week probably for episode 3. All right. I'm going to cut it right there.